Hello everyone, this is Mini Ninja speaking. This is a bit of a strange review in this case. Yes, this is a bootleg Android 18 based off the Edge's Figuarts line, but it's different than everything I've seen on YouTube up to this point. Even from the front of the box, bootleg as it is, the original bootleg had a Bandai logo and a little Toei animation fake sticker on there right now, but it's completely missing from this box. Most of the box otherwise is roughly the same, mostly matching what's on the real one, although the print quality does take a notable dive because it's recreation. You can kind of see the dot matrix marks on the printer there, on the box itself. The black tones, everything's a little more saturated. It's supposed to be a little more muted in some of the gray and black tones. And moving on to the figure itself, here's another couple of odd things I noticed right off the bat. Most of the accessories seem to be here, no issue. Surprisingly decent condition, considering this thing was kind of shipped, kind of a rough shot from China, as like most of the stuff. But even looking for the top, there are a few kind of odds and ends. Namely, 18 doesn't quite have her arms able to fit in the box. They were even folded up in the initial picture or initial video bit, if you notice here, and I can't get them to fit properly at all. All the accessory bits otherwise seem to be fine. But there are definitely some other odds and ends, like let's move up to where Krillin's head, as in one of the accessories. There's supposed to be like a little orange piece of plastic to kind of help keep it in place that appears in both the real and even the previous bootleg, which is just completely absent here at this point, which is strange. Speaking of the Krillin related bits, that's one of Krillin's hands as well as the detonator. Handled well enough. The hand seems like it's the same color as 18's though. I'm not sure that's supposed to match up. I'm pretty sure they were slightly different tones. Otherwise you have 18's crossed arms. Fairly reasonable paint application. And you have the assorted hands at this point. Mostly fine, although the grippy hands have some kind of a paint defect. Not sure where they came from because there was no paint on the original hands at all as far as I'm aware. Looking just on the surface alone, aside from those paint defects, most of the figure is pretty well handled. The eye decals on certain faces could use some work. They're a little kind of offset on one of the eyes, on at least two faces, but otherwise we're pretty good. It's just from even looking casually, just these arms, there's something weird going on with those elbows there. Even comparing to the real figure photos, more official photos, and the previous bootleg, these elbow joints are notably bigger than what the other ones have been up to this point. And the wrists, as you can see, which don't fit in the packaging properly, yeah, those are a bit of a thing too. Getting the thing out of the stand there, the figure, although I have it on the stand here, it can stand on its own. The joints are tight enough. The figure is capable of kind of holding its own balance, which is a good thing. And just looking a little further, just pointing out the head, on other bootlegs I can have seen at this point, there's been a big gap around the hair because of the casting being warped. That's not so much the case here. There is a gap, but it's not a huge one. It's probably just to facilitate actually changing the faces around, so I'm perfectly fine with that. The arms themselves, especially the right one, has a little bit of an issue with the shoulder there, but that's more like a bent peg than anything else, probably from being trapped in an odd fashion, so a little heat should be able to fix that well enough. But these elbows and the wrists, they just don't fit on this body. They have the same general range of movement as the real one, so roughly a 90 degree angle, so that's appropriate for what the real one can actually do there, but they're notably larger. It feels like they really came from a different source. If anyone happens to know where those came from, please tell me in the comments. And the wrist joints are equally kind of out of shape there, or kind of oversized. They should be a little more sunk in the body, not sticking out as much as they are. But I think if I were to take the effort to modify them, basically just drill it a bit further, it's still workable. So it's just a little bit of work there. Not impossible to deal with. Looking otherwise, another thing I'll notice is, the joint-wise, everything is fairly tight. All the arms and elbows are able to hold their place. The knees themselves will also prove pretty well tight. If anything, the shoulders are much like the X figure I was messing with earlier. They're a little too tight. I can move them up and down fairly well, but being able to properly rotate them side to side is a little more of an issue because it's kind of a really stiff joint. So I'm going to have to probably do a similar fix on that one once I get the chance here. The loosest joint I will say is probably going to be the waist joint. while it does have up and down movement, it's not exactly as sharp. So that's going to be an issue there. And another thing which kind of constricts movement as well, which I'm going to have here, is the jacket and the skirt seem to be cast. They should be cast in kind of a softer plastic. And while it is softer than the figure itself, of course, it's still actually stiff enough that, especially when it comes to the leg movement there, it doesn't really provide any give. You can't really move her legs up and down. You should be able to, at least based off more official photos, be able to kind of stretch it enough so you can actually do at least some sort of limited kicking poses, but right now it's so stiff that it really prevents any movement, so you're going to only get more static standing poses in this case. Taking a look at the knees a little more here. Not a perfect fit, I will say, but definitely it's more competent than I've seen in a lot of the bootleg videos of this figure up to this point there. So you can bend them a little more forward than you really should be able to, but otherwise they are generally well handled there. Looking at the knee joints, once again they hold the poses well enough. Feels like they should be able to move a bit more, but that is what it is. Looking at the boots, well, the boots are always an issue on these figures, so I'm not too surprised. What does surprise me though is the ankle rocker joint, I think that's what it's called, is a different color than what the rest of the boot is. That's not how it's been on previous bootlegs, so I'm gonna guess it was grabbed from somewhere else. The kind of toe joints themselves are fine. Bottom of the boot is a little nondescript, but it's like that on the real figure too. Paint job would have been a little, well, could have been a lot better on the boots, but that's another story. Quick look underneath the skirt, because this is kind of a thing. Different color plastic, oddly enough, underneath the skirt there. It should be the same color as the rest of the pants there, but it's not. Probably because they assume you're not going to be looking up there anyway, or kind of posing it because of how stiff the skirt is. Interesting. Here's what it looks like with the crossed arms in place. Took a little work to get in because of the shoulders, but once they do fit in, it actually looks really solid on there. So, suffice to say, I'm actually quite surprised by the quality of this particular bootleg. It stands up a lot better than everything I had seen up to this point. It just kind of picked up on a lark. And I think this will actually be kind of a new little pet project, kind of fixing some of the issues that I had with this bootleg in order to kind of get it up to snuff fully. So that's what we're going to be doing on the channel, aside from my gaming videos for the next little bit. Anyway, we'll end this video at this point, so thanks for watching and stay tuned for more in the near future.